Hi, I'm Cleo from Between the Lions, and you're watching the podcast where nostalgia comes alive. It's Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. Keep being wild about reading and enjoy the show. Roll it!
Welcome to Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, where nostalgia comes alive. Join Jake and his friends on a journey through pop culture of the past, where they interview professionals in the worlds of acting, directing, writing, puppeteering, and so much more. Who will they be chatting with today? Find out in this Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show episode.
Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, where nostalgia comes alive. I'll be here with us. Thank you for joining. As always, I'm your host, Jake. Duffenbar. Me today goes Chris Bixby. How's it going, my friend?
Doing good. Hi, everybody. Hello, Jake. How are you doing?
Doing great. Chris, thank you for asking.
Very, very excited for today's interview. Today's guest is a director who has worked on many different TV series, but is best known for his work on various children's and reality series. Some of them include Sesame Street, Oobi, Between the Lions, Rachael Ray Show, Kitchen Nightmares, so much more. Here he is, Scott Preston. Scott, happy to have you here.
Happy to be here. Nice to see you guys.
You as well. So to kick this off, could you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I've been in the business 45 years, from the beginning. So I came to New York out of college at age 22 in 1980 and got a job at this new upstart company called HBO. And worked there for 10 years on staff, ending up as a writer-producer for on-air promotion and marketing, doing a lot of stuff there. And then in 1990, HBO started its own separate comedy channel, and I moved there to become a show producer. 2 years later, that comedy channel merged with MTV's comedy channel and became Comedy Central. So my staff position was terminated. So I left HBO with a severance package, a freelance career, and a wife. And they hired me back a month later as a freelancer, and I've been working ever since. I started basically producing stuff, never really intending to become a director, but I always would watch a director and say, God, I'd rather be doing that. So I just kind of it's not something you can plan. You just kind of move into a certain direction, and I started directing. The very first thing I directed was Wienerville on Nickelodeon.
That's a wonderful show.
Yeah, do you remember that? You're a little young for that.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
We didn't grow up with it, but I've seen
it
it on YouTube. And when we had Mark Wiener on a little while ago, we talked to him a lot about it too.
Yeah. No, we had so much fun. I was way in over my head. I had no idea what I was doing, but you got to start somewhere,
Yeah.
But that was really fun, and that kind of got me into more children's stuff, and I also did a couple game shows down there, and it was all down in Orlando at Universal Studios.
Oh, yeah.
And while I was there, I got a call from an old friend from the Comedy Channel days who invited me to do the new Chris Rock show on HBO. So I went and did the first season of that, and I didn't stay with them for the second season because then I got the Daily Show after that. So I'm jumping from show to show. So I did the Daily Show for 3 years. Starting off with Greg Kilborn, that was the first host, and then Jon Stewart came in, a year later, and that was super fun. Of course, you can see what that show has become. But I moved on after 3 years because I felt like I hadn't done enough different types of stuff, and I wanted to expand a little more, and ended up getting involved with the Food Network. And did a bunch of shows on Food Network. At the same time, I'm doing Oobi and all these other children's shows. Still doing stuff for Comedy Central on the side. It was a long, strange ride. Believe me, I did a lot of stuff going on at once. And I think one of my favorite things in that time was Comedy Central. Colin Quinn had a show called Tough Crowd, where he would sit at a table with the comedians and just tell jokes and laugh and goof around. And we all thought we were going to retire on that show. That was fun.
Nice.
But that was over after 2 years. Then I went on and did all these other things. And then I didn't really get into Sesame Street proper until 2005 was the first year I did that. And then I started doing that. But I've been, I'm kind of like there's a directing team of 7 or 8 directors every year, and I'm kind of on the back end of that because I was always doing other stuff, so I can only give them a couple days a year.
Right.
And then I got Rachael Ray 10 years ago, so I did that for the last 10 years,
Nice.
which was pretty much a full-time gig, so I just stayed with that. And I could do Sesame when it was available, which was infrequently, and in the summers I do other stuff, but that was really, really fun. And that show ended last year. So now I'm still working. No one ever retires from television. You don't retire from television. Television retires you.
Right, yeah.
So I'm always going to work. I'm always available
Yeah.
to work. I think my big job now is just to make sure everyone knows I'm still alive and still I like to think maybe at the top of my game still. But I still have Sesame Street, and I get calls for stuff occasionally, and it's a lot of fun stuff. And if I don't get called, then my wife and I go out to lunch.
Nice.
It's not too bad. Not too bad.
That's great. So, what was your childhood like, and how did you grow up?
I grew up outside of Philadelphia. I was born in Massachusetts, but we moved to suburban Philadelphia when I was 5, so I consider myself from Philadelphia. And it was a very, very standard, middle class. I had one sister, and my dad worked, and my mother was a housewife, and this is back in the 50s and 60s. And I was a bit of a band geek in high school. I was in the marching band, and I was all about music. I thought I was going to be a musician eventually, but I don't know. I just kind of got into like the AV squad, which is pretty geeky too. But I got into the AV squad and kind of got a taste for it. And I said, this is kind of cool. So I went to college for that. But yeah, very, very normal growing up. I had a really nice childhood.
Nice.
That's wonderful to hear. So, what was the directing on the Nick game show series? Figure It Out like?
Figure It Out was great fun. It was at the studio down in Orlando at Universal, and we would do like 4 shows a day, and the audience was people who were there at the park. So we'd bring them in, we'd do a show, get rid of them, bring the next group in, do a show, get rid of them. Summer Sanders was the host. And this is, I get 96, 95, 96. And we dropped slime on people. We went out on location and did all these challenges. It was super fun. And again, I was still kind of new to the whole thing, so I was kind of making it up as I was going. But it was one of those things where I really kind of established what my main goal for my career was, which is basically just to do good work with nice people, because they were super nice people. We were making great shows, and it was really, really fun. So I just like to have fun. Good work with nice people.
Absolutely. So moving on to some of the puppet projects you directed, you got to direct the Wubbulous World of Dr. Seuss.
Yeah.
What was working on that show like?
That was wild because it was in a very small insert stage at the Sesame offices on the east side, and it was all. And the first time I ever worked in this genre, it's all virtual reality backgrounds. And the first time we actually had a device where we could create a background, and as the camera moved, the background moved with it. That was brand new then. This is early 2000s, I think. And I got to know all the puppeteers who are, they're all still puppeteers at Sesame Street. They all work for Henson on the Muppets. And that was a real challenge because it's like one little tiny bit at a time, because the background always has to change, and the background has to be, some of the characters are animated, some of the characters are live. So it's really intricate and very difficult to do, and super fun. And in this little tiny stage, I wouldn't believe how small the place was. But that was super fun.
Nice.
It's such a wonderful series because you know how the Cat in the Hat, characters, usually everyone knows them from like animated, but then
Absolutely.
turn to like, puppetry style. I think it was such a great way for them to do that. And I think it did win its course in its time.
It was,
so it was
super cool. And a lot of great
great.
music too. The songs were really, really funny and smart and well written and everything. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. So now, even though you kind of mentioned a little bit with Oobi earlier, of course, you got to direct that series as well. What was that like?
Yeah, and again, like Sesame Street, I was part of the team of directors, so there were a bunch of people who were doing it. But Oobi it's where it's just their hands with eyes on their fingers. And what was amazing to me on that is that you could look at somebody's hand, they've got a couple of eyes on there, maybe like a little, additional clothing or something, but very, very simple. And they could create emotion from their hands. This is what these puppeteers are so amazing at, is that you can look at this hand and see the feeling and just the way they move, the way they come up or the way they go down or whatever. It's really fascinating, the depth of emotion that they can convey just with a hand on the screen. So that was really cool. I like that one.
Oh yeah, amazing to Lagasse. Oh my gosh, for what he did for that series,
you've
as well as Stephanie.
And Stephanie
Tyler.
is a dear friend of mine.
Yeah,
Tim, Stephanie, Tyler, Noel.
Yeah.
Right, and
Such
I still work with
guys.
all of them on Sesame. I was with them a couple months ago on Sesame Street. Yeah.
Nice. So
That's wonderful.
another series you directed, also we briefly mentioned in your introduction, you directed Between the Lions for PBS. What was that show like?
Yeah, and again, I only did like 3 or 4 episodes of that, because they just needed, one director can't do all of it. It's just too complicated, too much stuff to prep in a short amount of time. That was beautiful. That was neat because it was such a big stage with multiple layers and stairs going up to the top layer. And we would have puppets up top. We would have puppets down below. It was very intricate. And the thing I love about this type of puppeteering, and this all started with Jim Henson back in the day, to make a puppet show where you don't have a table or a platform or a counter for the puppeteer to be behind. That's a puppet show. But to make a show where you get to know the characters, really like them, Jim would use the camera frame as the table. So you just see the character. You're not seeing that they're behind a thing. So the big challenge on shows like that, especially on Between the Lions, is getting the puppets out there without hiding the puppeteer behind something. So trick in very tricky ways, using the camera frame to create real characters, so you really believe the characters and they're not just a puppet. And I learned a lot about that at the Between the Lions.
Yeah, Between the Lions is a wonderful show.
Oh yes, absolutely. We got to check a lot of people who are involved in that series. Jen, Peter, Pam.
Absolutely, and again, all the people I work with all the time at Sesame now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I did all these Sesame adjacent shows without actually being part of Sesame until about 17 years ago. Because a lot of them have been there 30, 40 years. It's amazing.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
People stay there. Yeah.
Definitely.
Oh, yeah. So, moving on to Sesame, since 2008, you kind of got to start directing for Sesame Street, that we already talked about in your introduction earlier, too. How did you first kind of began working on that?
Well, it's from the same people that did Oobi and did Lions and did Wubbulous World of Dr. Seuss. The producers were also very involved, and the Henson team was always part of that. And so one of them just said, "Hey, let's give Scott a shot on Sesame." And that's really all it is. It's just I remember the first job I did at Sesame Street was a soccer game between chickens and I can't remember what it was, but it was something really, really adorable. But I had all this like action going on. And I thought, this is interesting,
I've heard of that. Yeah.
But to be able to be on the set, at a Kaufman, the story, to be on that set, the first time you're out there, it's like a little bit overwhelming. And now it's like home, because we've been there forever. It's really wonderful. Have you been there? Have you ever been out to Kaufman?
No,
This
no,
time?
no,
Like
never
in real
been
life,
there.
no, I haven't. But I'm sure,
You
like,
should come and visit sometime.
oh,
Would love
I'm
to,
sure. Well,
yeah.
you've talked to
That would
everybody
be
on the
wonderful.
show, so I'm sure that somebody will invite you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's so great.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So now overall, this may be a tough question to answer, but do you have any like favorite Sesame Street Muppets?
Oh, that is a tough question to answer because they're all going to be watching this. Yeah. Well, I think I laugh the hardest whenever I'm doing something with Cookie Monster.
Oh
yeah, yeah.
David Rudman is
Oh yeah.
so funny and so natural and so he goes off script
An
and just
amazing job with him. Like,
It's it every time,
and sometimes
exactly.
the way you have to like to do the voice even and keep on going for that period of time,
it's
it's
a
just
fascinating talent. It's incredible talent,
like,
and
it's
I've
such
worked
an
with him on
incredible
other
job.
stuff too. He was on Rachael Ray a couple of times cooking with Rachel in the kitchen, and she couldn't get through it. She was laughing so hard, and the audience
Oh
was
my
losing
gosh.
it. That's So I always love working with them, but they're all fabulous. They're all amazing. I mean, do you imagine sitting there on the floor with a monitor and you're holding this thing up here, and it's not light. It's heavy. It's hard to hold sometimes. And you turn it to the right, but on the monitor it goes to the left. And how they coordinate that and how they do the lines and create emotion, it's really fascinating.
Absolutely.
I don't think I could do that. I don't have that in me.
Oh, that's awesome. So I'm kind of curious. Do you have any like favorite episodes of Sesame you got to direct?
Wow. We did a crazy one a couple of years ago where some of the characters are they're fixing an old grandfather clock comes in to
Okay.
be fixed, and they go to fix it, but then Abby tries to say, well, maybe we'll make ourselves small and get inside the clock, and she makes themselves small, and they're suddenly inside the clock, and we built an entire grandfather clock inside on a separate stage away from the street with gears turning and all this stuff going. It was really, really, it was intricate, but really super fun. But I think as far as like favorite episodes,
I might remember that. What was it like? Oh
it
gosh.
was maybe 4 years ago or so, 3-4 years ago.
Oh, okay. So this is like one of the newer ones. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's recently. I mean, maybe like right before the
Yeah.
pandemic.
Ah,
So it's probably 2019.
nice.
But I want to jump to one that my favorite thing I've done, I think, at Sesame was just this past April. And this is not a regular Sesame Street episode. This is something new that's going to be coming out. It's called Cookie Monster's Bake Sale.
Oh yeah,
And
that's right. I think that came out like earlier this year.
Yeah.
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 What's streaming right
great.
now on Max, I believe, is the pilot for that.
Oh,
But we really beefed it up quite a bit, and we now shot it on the main set. And
oh,
we did
cool.
2 episodes, and I think they start streaming I think one of them starts streaming in September on Max.
Oh, nice.
And it's a half
That's
hour
awesome.
show. It's a whole half hour show with kids coming in from these different organizations, and they compete against each other. Like we did a human bowling where kids slide down this whole greased up slide and then hit these giant pins and knock down as many pins as they can, and then it all ends up in a big bake sale that we do on the set. We would have guests, like 60 people on the set going to the bake sale, and then all the money goes to this organization. One of them is a library that needs new books and tablets and everything else, and another one was a group, an arts group that needs all art supplies and everything else. And I think everybody had an amazing time, and I think these shows are really good. And I'm super proud of them.
That's
So
awesome.
they
Wonderful.
start coming out in September.
That's
Nice.
great. That's awesome.
Nice. And
Looking forward for more.
nice. And
Yeah.
and you also got to direct some of the segments on the show, including Elmo the Musical. Oh, what was that
Oh,
like?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were fun. They were crazy because that was all on green screen.
Yep.
It was all virtual reality backgrounds, but it was all music, which was incredible. And it was hard because a lot of the characters were animated later in CG, so we had to have the characters playing against somebody who wasn't there. So we'd see a character like Elmo singing against the abominable snowman.
Yeah.
But we didn't have a snowman, so we had one of our performers just standing. And you see a human standing there just doing the thing, and then that's all replaced in post. And as long as they don't cross each other in front of the camera, you can easily cut one out and put the snow monster in. But that was a challenge. That was really fun. I did 3 or 4 of those.
Nice.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, Kevin Clash for what he.
Kevin Clash and Ryan Dillon.
I learned so much from Kevin Clash. I haven't seen him in years, but he's an amazing guy.
That's awesome.
We've had him on. I'll have to tell him that you say hello.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Another wonderful, talented folks. Like they really are. I'm kind of curious. Do you have any even you only did like a couple of them, but do you remember which Elmo the Musical sketches or segments that you got to be involved?
Well, definitely the abominable snowman.
Yeah.
Where they trek up the mountain to meet the monster.
Yeah.
And then
I remember that one.
You know what? I have to look all this stuff. That's the problem. I have my resume sitting in front of me, so I remember all this stuff I did, but I don't remember all these things.
Right.
I'll have to look it up, and then maybe I'll send you a picture of it so you can stick it in post or something. But I'll tell you the truth, I can't think of the other one.
That's okay.
No worries at all. I mean, you only take just a couple of them, man.
It was a long time ago now,
so.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a while ago. Yeah, that was probably 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. So you also got to direct 2 of the outreach projects that Sesame Street did, including Families Stand Together and Food for Thought. Sesame's done a wonderful job with outreach stuff. What was directing the outreach stuff like?
That was very, very rewarding. One of them, I can't remember which one. One of them was with what's his name from the Today Show?
Al Roker?
Al Roker. I'm sorry, I can't. The brain isn't what he is.
Yeah, it was a Family Stand Together one.
Yeah,
that's a great special.
Yeah, Al and his wife were wonderful. They're just so sweet, and they were so and I think that's true with every celebrity who comes in to be on the show. They, no matter who they are, in their career, or any positive things you hear about, any negative things you hear about, the celebrity comes in, they see the street, they see the puppets, and they just become the sweetest people on earth. And they were just delightful. We had a lot of kids and a lot of families there, and that was that was pretty neat. I liked that a lot. And the writers, I think, on that one really nailed it.
Oh yeah,
and the writing. That's the other thing about Sesame is the writing team is
phenomenal.
So smart.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh yes. So now who have been some of your favorite celebrity guests to direct?
I think probably the most fun I had with a celebrity was Ricky Gervais.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Right.
He did a bit with he sang a lullaby to Elmo, who has trouble. You know that one, who has trouble falling asleep.
Such a funny sketch.
Awesome.
I think Kevin did talk to him about them each other.
We did, yeah.
He probably did, because I'll tell you, the funniest thing was they kept cracking each other up and they couldn't get through it. And Kevin is underneath the bed, with his hand through the hole in the bed, and Elmo's up there on the bed, and Ricky's sitting next to him. They would crack each other up, and you could see Kevin losing it. But the fun thing was, as Kevin was losing it, Elmo was losing it also, because he becomes one with the puppet. And the two of them were just cracking each other up to the point they couldn't get through it. And we had to stop and take a break. And, it was really funny. When Ricky said to him, how come during the day you walk around naked, but now at night you're wearing pajamas? And once he said that, gone. Kevin was gone. He couldn't get through it at all. It's hysterically funny. And I liked it because Ricky came in, before even Kevin was there or anybody else was there. Ricky just came in to look at the set, and he was talking to me. He goes, I always like to let me know what camera is on, because I like to make a little look towards camera, which is exactly what he did in The Office, and what everybody who in the U.S. version of The Office picked up. And then they would always look at the camera and do a little smirk. So he said, just let me know what camera. I said, I love that about. I love that. I love when you do that. That's really fun. So that was probably my favorite one of the celebrities.
That's wonderful.
Oh,
That's
nice.
great.
It's funny since I'm like, I always make a joke that a lot of the directors work there full time. Some are puppeteers and some are writers and producers. So when all the scripts come out at the beginning of the year, they say, "Oh, I want to do that one. Oh, I want to do that one." It's like, I don't know. That's a tough one. Give that one to Preston. and right. So I think as a result, I don't always get the big celebrities, but I don't care. It's fine. I love every minute of it, and everybody I get to work with is just delightful.
Definitely. So moving on now from directing children's series, as we've talked about a little bit earlier, you've directed a number of talk shows, including The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, which you mentioned earlier. What was working on that show with him like?
Well, when I came into it, the show was only about 10 months old when I came in. The original director moved on, and I came in, and it was Craig Kilborn. I don't know if you even remember who he is, but he was the perfect newsman look. Good looking, smart. Kind of smart, alecky, maybe like the clueless pretty boy anchor. And he was perfect, and it just worked so well from the show. Then a year and a half later, he decided to move on, and the producer wanted to bring in Jon Stewart. And we were all like, well, Jon Stewart doesn't look like a newsman. We don't even think Jon Stewart owns a tie. How's that going to work, on a news parody show? And of course, we know how that worked. He came in and just like created a whole different animal that just went through the roof. And he's also like the sweetest guy you ever want to know. When Jon first came in, he said to me before the first day on set, "Give me the name of everybody in the crew. I want to know all their names before I meet them." And he walked up right up to the stage manager and said, "Hey, how you doing?" He knew everybody's name on the crew before he even started shooting. And then after I left, about a year after I left the show, I ran into him at a party.
Oh, nice.
And it was cool. And I made a joke that like, well, it's a good thing I left because 6 months after I left, you guys won a Peabody Award, which is true. So I had to leave so they could win a Peabody Award. And he said, "Yeah, you know what? I waited. We were looking at the window. We saw you leaving. I said, okay, guys, let's write better stuff." That was it. So, I mean, that's the kind of guy. He's just really, really sweet. And, I haven't seen him in years, and I'm sure if I saw him today, he'd still be as sweet as ever.
Yeah, definitely.
That's wonderful. So now, for nearly a decade, you also got to direct the Rachael Ray Show that Bruce talked about a little tiny bit earlier. What was that like?
Well, I came into that show 7 years into its run. It did 17 years. So I came in on season 8, and things were pretty established. The set was there, the whole procedure was set and everything else. So I came in, and basically for me, it was just like learning the ropes of something that is like a well-oiled machine. But we would shoot 3 days a week, 2 or 3 shows a day, a different audience every show, a 1-hour show. And we'd shoot for like 3 weeks and then have a week off and then shoot for like 3 weeks. So it was actually a pretty good schedule in the sense that we weren't like Monday through Friday shooting our brains out. We just shot our brains out 3 days a week. But that's the one show where I say everybody from the top down couldn't have been more delightful. Everybody just wanted to do a good show. They wanted to, and there was no like, some shows have a real like ball buster that, tries to get people to perform and work out of fear because they think they can get more out of them. And nothing was like that at all on the Rachael Ray Show. And I ended up doing, I think it was 1,600 episodes.
Oh, wow.
10 years. Yeah, it was. And I love Rachael. I didn't interact with her that much because, it was she'd come out in the studio, we'd do the hour show, and she'd go back to her room, and I was in the control room. I was in another room the whole time. Mm-hmm. So she and I didn't interact that much. but we really liked each other. We really respected each other. She is like, I don't know how she does as much as she does. I think she probably sleeps 2 hours a night. She has so much in her mind, and she's so, there's a lot going on when you talk to Rachael Ray. So you talk to her, you have to, be really aware of what she's saying, because you're going to hear a lot of stuff in a very short amount of time. But they're delightful people, and I still have some very, very dear friends who I made on that show that I still hang out with
Nice.
a year and a half later.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that was a fun one. Again, good work with nice people.
Yeah, so now what was it like directing Kitchen Nightmares with Gordon Ramsay?
I did one day on that.
Oh, okay.
Only because the regular director had a commitment. It was a last minute thing. So, and I hadn't done anything like that. That was a total reality show. Okay. Hidden camera, everything else. So I went out on the island, and I had no idea what I was doing. I was just in a back room next to the restaurant, and it was like, this bank of monitors, and I could talk to there were camera operators, but they were all hidden, and then some of them weren't hidden. It was really confusing. But I like him. Everyone just talks about how insane he is and how crazy and mean. He sat down and talked with me. We had the nicest conversation. He's a really sweet guy, and we ended up going off to a external location for some, I can't remember exactly even what it was. It was like at an indoor football stadium or practice room. And I'm not sure, I don't remember what we were doing, but he was funny and he was smart, and he was like, so I think that's really fun. He does play a persona.
Right.
But, he knows what he's talking about. He's a smart man. He's a cool guy.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful.
I
So,
hope he doesn't watch this.
so some other food-related reality series you directed were Dinner Impossible and Restaurant Impossible. What were those like?
Oh my God. I have probably the best dinner party conversations about the Dinner Impossible shoots. I mean, you're aware of the show, right? With Robert Irvine.
Mhm.
We would go somewhere. He would be given a challenge.
Yeah.
He didn't know what the challenge was, what he'd have to do. He'd have to make it up on the fly as he was going. And I did 50 or 60 of those. And I think probably the highlights, some of the most amazing ones were, we did one in Quebec at an ice hotel.
Oh, wow.
Hotel made out of ice. They rebuild it every year. And it probably had 30 guest rooms, and it was so cold. And so what he did a dinner for the staff at the hotel and all the guests. So there were like 50 people. So he had to figure out how to cook in sub-freezing temperature. And the first thing is you don't have regular burners because you can't have an open flame. It's going to melt the hotel. So we had the convection. No, it's not. What is it? Induction stove tops, which don't put off any heat. They just put off an electrical current. Then you have the correct kind of pot on it, and then you put water in. The pot heats up. So we had to do all that stuff. But he would have a piece of meat on the counter, and he tried to cut it, and it would be freezing as he was trying to cut through this meat. Crazy stuff like that. He would go over to we had a stand-up cooler for the food. He'd go and stick his head in the cooler because it was warmer than outside, just to warm up his face a little bit. So that was like a 5-hour shoot. We couldn't do any more than that. Cameras kept locking up and freezing up. So that was wild. But then on the other end of that, we did a show on the set of the show Lost in Hawaii.
Oh, wow.
On the beach where they shot Lost for the cast and crew. We did like a lunch for the cast and crew, and we threw Robert on the beach and said, all right, here's a place where you can get some supplies, but you have to figure out how to cook a meal on the beach. So he and his sous chefs had to like build fires and figure out how to present stuff. And then we served the lunch to the cast and crew of Lost. So it's like that kind of stuff in so many different directions, so many different places. Dinner for like food for like 3,000 people at a convention in Pennsylvania. I think this might be the one where I had the most outrageous stories about. That was really fun. Restaurant Impossible, I did like 3 or 4 of those, and then I got Rachael Ray, so I wasn't available anymore.
Right.
But they were tricky because we would go in to a failing restaurant and turn it around in a day or in 2 days. And it was real. I mean, stuff really happened. And I think they went back and looked at a lot of the restaurants, and a high percentage of them are doing much better than they were when we came in. It's not like a reality show where we go in, we get what we need, and leave and don't care what happens to them. These guys actually, their business has improved. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, the cooking shows are always so funny. I mean, well, going back to like Kitchen Nightmares especially, I mean, there have been some very interesting episodes, and just him, especially the parts where he's like just yelling at the delusional owners or whatever. It's just so funny.
Exactly.
They're all so funny.
Yeah,
So
like I say, I did one day there, so I don't have a lot to talk about.
yeah,
And I mean, it's kind of a cloud now because that was a long time ago.
right, right. So now, what was directing the Emeril Lagasse show like?
Well, Emeril, I've done a bunch of different shows with Emeril, and he and I became very close. And he always says to me, and still to this day, he would appear on Rachael Ray, and he and I had this mantra we always did for each other. He'd say, "Scotty, I'll cook it, you shoot it, let's get out of here." Because
Nice.
that all came from this show we did called Emerald Green, which was this cable system called Planet Green, which I don't think even exists anymore. But it was basically about cooking in a healthy way, thinking of conservation, thinking of the planet and all that kind of stuff. And we would shoot entire episodes inside of Whole Foods down in Alexandria, Virginia. And we do 2 of these a day. And he would always say, "Scotty, I'm going to cook it. You're going to shoot it. We're going to be at the bar at 5:00." I love that, man. I love that. And so we did Planet Green, for 2 seasons. We did quite a few episodes of that. And then the Emeril Lagasse show was it was kind of like try to reinvent his Food Network Live show, which he did years earlier, which was which made him the star that he is. And with a live band and musical performances and more of a talk show, and it was really fun, but it didn't fly. It didn't go. It was a big set, a big crew, lots of fun, but I think it was a Martha Stewart production, and it just didn't work in the brand. So that show kind of went away. But
Right.
then I did another thing for him called Emeril's Table, which was lovely. It was and we shot it in the summer and during Rachael Ray's shootings, and we used her set. And this is before I was on Rachael Ray, but we used the set and we shot in that studio. And it was just him with a couple of people sitting there, and he was cooking. And it was just, he enjoyed doing that because it was just about the food. It wasn't about putting on a big show and, lots of bells and whistles. It was just making great food.
Nice.
And he always had a joke there because we had a stove there, but it wasn't really working. So he called it the Easy Bake Oven because you open it, the light would come on and put, it's 60 watts in there. Let's see how long it takes to cook. It's always this ongoing joke with him. I love that guy.
Nice.
Oh, that's wonderful. So recently, you directed the last part of the Quiet on Set documentary. Well, can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, that's all this stuff that happened in Nickelodeon that was part of that documentary. That happened after I was working there. So I wasn't really aware of any of that. And what I did was just the episode 5, which was not actually part of the documentary.
Right, it was like a
kind of
bonus
an
episode.
After show, yeah, with Soledad O'Brien as a host, and some of the characters who were in the show coming on, and it's basically a talk show setup. So they basically just brought me in because I know how to do talk shows.
Right.
So, but it was interesting, and it was a very, very, small budget. So we couldn't like do a whole studio. We just had like a space and we brought in the equipment, but then we had to do a Zoom coming in, and she interviewed somebody on Zoom, so it got really tricky because we were making stuff up without having all the really technical support that we needed. So that was the biggest challenge of that thing. But yeah, that was just basically a talk show. It wasn't the actual part of the actual documentary.
Right. So as we're getting close to wrapping up here, can you share any projects you're currently working on, at least that you're allowed to share?
Yeah. I like I said, there's not a lot going on for me right now. I think my issue as 35 years as a freelancer is the one thing I always hated, and I think most freelancers will tell you this, is looking for your next job. So I don't do that anymore. I basically let people call me. And I just had to, like I said, to make sure everyone knows I'm still available, and I'm still completely on top of my game. But the only thing I have now is in September, we're doing a couple of things for Sesame Street. It's a school project. And these are some of the things I do with them outside of the main set. It's a little insert stage we have at their offices on Broadway. And it's all on green screen or blue screen. Green screen if it's Cookie Monster, and blue screen if it's Oscar the Grouch, because he's green, that kind of stuff. These are the kind of things you got to think about. And so we'll do like little short pieces there. So that's fun because it's still all the same puppeteers, but in a much more small, intimate sort of setting. And earlier this year with them, I did a bunch of TikTok pieces in that same studio. We did like 60 or 70 TikTok pieces, and they get huge views. I mean, people love these things. They're little short 1-minute pieces. But after that, I actually bought a cap that says "Make video horizontal again," because I'm so tired of shooting in vertical. I want everything to be horizontal again, because TikTok is everything is in vertical. But so that's it. There's really not, I'm available if anybody's out there, but I'm also okay with it. And I'm looking forward to, after the first of the year, will hopefully be another season of Sesame. So we'll get a lot more work there. And I always seem to be really busy in the wintertime. A lot of little like this. I did a couple of things for Food Network last winter. I did this Nickelodeon documentary, part 5. I did, things like that come up. Little 1-day shoot, 2-day shoot, 3-day shoots. I love that kind of stuff. Because it just fills the time, but it doesn't overwhelm me. Right.
So
looking forward for more of those Sesame stuff, which we're excited for.
Yes, looking forward indeed. So to wrap this up, the last question that Jake here is going to ask is a question we ask all of our guests at the end. Go ahead, Jake.
Thank you, Chris. So, of course, this podcast is called Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. When you think of nostalgia, what do you think of? In your own words, how would you define the word nostalgia?
Oh my God, I should have prepared for this. I know it's funny when you like watch something, a television movie that you haven't seen in 30 years, and suddenly you remember where you were when you saw it first. You remember the effect it had on you. I think it's just like any kind of like memory of that leads to other memories of stuff you did. Like, for example, we're going to, my wife and I are going in September to watch Jaws with the New York City Philharmonic.
Oh,
so
nice.
they have the movie on a big screen, and the Philharmonic plays the soundtrack to it, which is fascinating.
Oh, nice.
I remember specifically the day I went to see Jaws in 1974, 3, whenever it came out, and the effect it had on us, especially when none of us ever wanted to go to the ocean again after that. But, I think that's for nostalgia for me is like seeing something and then remembering exactly where I was when I first saw it, and just bringing back all like a flood of memories coming back. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
no, absolutely, no.
Yeah,
just made that up.
Thank you.
No, yeah, great words to end on. Well, Scott, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. This was a blast.
Yeah, this was fun. I like your show, guys. I think this is really fun, really interesting.
Well,
All right, guys.
Yeah, enjoy the rest of your day, Scott. This was fun.
And you let me know when this is going to air.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes,
Cool.
we do.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks
Yes.
again. Means a lot.
Take care.
Bye, Scott.
Thanks again. Bye.
It's goodbye from us as well. We absolutely enjoyed our time speaking with the wonderful Scott Preston. Keep on the lookout for more wonderful interviews coming your way. And as always, what do we say, Jake?
Keep nostalgia alive. Take care, everyone. See you next time. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another wonderful Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show episode. Be sure to follow Jake and the Happy Nostalgia team on social media, check out our website, and stream the show wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And as always, remember to keep nostalgia alive. Bye-bye.